takes a while to open up.
Well, are you all ready for the most exciting Monday you will ever have? Ready? Oh, I see more. Hurry up, take your seats. We're ready to start. Ready, 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 sit down. Whoop. Those who are registered in my class, this handout, you'll come after class, I will give it to you. Unfortunately, I don't have enough for our guests. It's only for our registered students of CL 112, Faces and Places in Fashion. And I am the professor of this class. If you don't like it, you can blame me, okay? But I think you'll have a wonderful afternoon. I'm happy to see you're all so interested in really learning about the best of fashion through David Wolfe. We have a special privilege today when we have David Wolfe as our guest at FIT. He is the foremost talent in fashion forecasting, and even more than that, just that he is a high-profile fashion personality. His wit, wisdom, and vision have earned him the reputation as the foremost in his field of fashion for continuous excellence. Continuous excellence, that's hard. David describes his lifelong interest in fashion as a fascinating mix of style, economics, history, politics, weather, science, sex, and a sense of humor. He is the driving force behind Doneger Associates. As the creative director of Doneger, he works directly with all the retailers, major chains, department stores, specialty stores, from Walmart's to Nordstrom's. This all accounts for millions of dollars of business annually. He brings in the cash. He is a native of Ohio. How many of anyone from Ohio here? Oh, okay, too bad. Began his career in a small-town department store. He was a coordinator of everything in the store, illustrator, window decorator, everything. And this is a typical small-town department store. Then he suddenly decided he wanted to travel. He went to London, and in the 60s this prompted him to move to Europe, where he established himself as an illustrator at all the collections in Europe for Vogue, Harper's, Gallery Lafayette, London Times, and many others. I'm trying to go fast because I'm anxious to bring David up here, and he probably hates hearing about himself again and again. He discovered talents such as Armani, Lagerfeld, Versace, Montana, and so on and so forth while he was doing his European life. Again, I would like to thank David for all his time and talent we receive and we are about to receive. He has given us without limit, and otherwise he requires, he has come here for 15 years, twice a year, 2 semesters a year, right? That's 30 times he has given and given and given of his knowledge and talent because he loves to pass it on to you young people so that when you get out, you'll do the right thing in the fashion world. That's what I'm saying. He hasn't said that. This is, well, and I don't know, words fail me. I want to thank you, David. You know what I think of you. When you hear David, believe him, because he doesn't say anything that's not true and real. Okay, I said my piece.
It's a hard introduction to follow, isn't it? Can I have the lights down a bit and we'll focus on the screen? What I'm going to share with you this afternoon is probably the most challenging presentation I've ever had to put together. I've been in the fashion business forever, and my job is to travel the world, look at what's going on, and make very, very educated guesses about what's going to happen next. Well, that's never easy, but because we're now working in the industry on spring 2010, it's really a challenge. Because, just in case you haven't noticed, we're in the middle of an economic meltdown that really is unprecedented in the careers of most people who are working in the fashion industry. So, as we look forward to spring 2010, I do have two very, very optimistic things to say to you. First of all, thank God you're students, because by the time you are ready to go out into the industry, the projections are that the economic downturn will be on an upswing. So I think there will be jobs for you, and I definitely think there will be a fashion industry, and for sure there will be a spring 2010. When I look at it, I see it as the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's very encouraging. All we have to do is figure out how to get through the tunnel. And that's part of my job too, to help people to figure out how to survive in fashion and retailing for 2009. It's kind of a simple no-brainer exercise, really. We're going to see a lot more sales. If you're a dedicated fashion shopper, boy, you know, these are the best times. If you are a shopkeeper, these are the worst times, because there are going to be more and more better and better bargains out there as we get deeper and deeper into this tunnel on our way toward the light. There are certainly going to be a lot of shake-ups in the world and in the fashion world, some shakedowns, and quite a few shakeouts. Not as many as during the Great Depression of the 1930s, when it's actually charted that 14% of the retailers in America went out of business. Nobody is projecting that kind of retail disaster as we go forward. The problem is that we are living in a fear economy. It is not as bad as it keeps getting, and the fear begets more fear. And that is sort of a downward spiral that we are in at the moment. Certainly, you know, we haven't bottomed out yet, and the fear economy is driving us to it, and we're being driven there by the media. I think the media is very, very irresponsible. I mean, disaster is a great story, isn't it? A plane crash is a bigger story than planes landing safely every day. And so the media keeps fanning the flames of this meltdown by publishing pictures of empty malls at Christmas time. The New Yorker magazine with that unfunny cartoon on the front. When it arrived in my mailbox, I sort of saw it and giggled a bit. And then thought, no, it's not really funny. The end is near, sale. I think we need some optimism, and there are some signs. This cover of Time magazine delighted me. You may not know enough history to catch the reference, but it's Obama photoshopped into being Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt got the country out of the Great Depression, and we hope that Obama will get us out of whatever we're calling this meltdown. FDR famously said something that has been quoted over and over again. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Maybe you know that quotation. It's not the entire quotation. The rest of it, I think, is really very, very important to people in the fashion and retail business, because he said the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. That's what we need to do. We are hunkering down, frightened, and what we need to do is to push ahead and figure the way out. Change is in the air. There are some good things. I'm starting to see, and it's my job to pick up the first indications of a big change, a rebirth of American values. I think we have been through a very, very tough time internationally, not able to say we're proud to be Americans, but I think we can start saying that again now, and I think it's going to start affecting the way we think about fashion and advertising and life. Right now, you know, we're kind of tentative. It's like, oh, well, gee, maybe it's not cool. Maybe it's a little bit corny. Well, I think corny is going to become very chic in a minute, and I'm seeing more and more signs. One came through my mailbox last week. This is a postcard I got from my dentist telling me it's time for my checkup. So I figure, you know, things are starting to look up a bit. If you look around, you can see these signs too. I keep seeing American flags in the backgrounds of a lot of fashion layouts. I keep seeing red, white, and blue, stars and stripes appearing here and there. And every time I see it, it kind of makes me feel good. And I think that's the whole idea of it. If we can start feeling good and positive and powerful, then we can get over the fear that's driving the economy and the fashion industry down. What does it mean right away? Well, it means that we're going to be replaying some ever-popular, safe, and very, very saleable themes. Call it whatever you will. Red, white, and blue, Americana, Spectator, Seaside, I don't care. It's the same old stuff all the time, and it always works. It's like a knee-jerk reaction to optimism. It always sells. All you have to do is find some clever new way to make it fresh, the way Dolce & Gabbana did in this collection. This return to American values, things we can count on, is already happening in many areas. Textiles and fabrics, for one thing. Classic gingham checks, updated, but not very much. You don't have to update it that much to have it work. And we're going to be seeing more crisp, clean, all-American gingham in women's wear, in men's wear, in children's wear, in home furnishings. And if we've got gingham, of course, we've got just good old basic stripes, bicolor stripes, very, very fresh. It couldn't be more simple. It couldn't be easier to sell, and people will like it because it looks like the kind of thing you're not going to get tired of in a nanosecond. We took these pictures in Saint-Tropez on the French Riviera last summer, where the trendy people did not know an economic meltdown was coming, and they already were starting to dress in a simpler, more down-to-earth, all-American fashion that looks very, very right to me at the moment. We've got gingham, we've got stripes, of course we're going to have polka dots too. All different sizes, from tiny little pin dots and aspirin dots to big coin dots, usually white on a color or a color on white. Very, very simple. I think we are heading into a new reality, and it's about time. We're kind of getting a grip on what's been wrong with fashion, what's been wrong with America, what's been wrong with the economy, and it's going to be a hard pill to swallow, but I think we're going to do it. It means we need to do some clear thinking about everything, including fashion. We need to do some straight talk about it too. We've been kidding ourselves about some aspects of fashion for a long time. And we certainly need creative concepts, because creativity is the engine that drives fashion forward. And creativity is what will cure the doldrums that fashion finds itself in at the moment. There are going to be some changes. I think one of them is that we're going to get over our celebrity obsession. Instead of living life vicariously through a celebrity, you know, some train wreck, you know, young starlet in Hollywood, maybe we're going to start leading our own lives. Wouldn't that be fun? I think it's about time to roll up the red carpet. And when we do, I hope there are some celebrities on it, and I hope they just get rolled up and dragged away. Who are you tired of? I mean, I just wish Paris Hilton would get put to sleep. I mean, I do not want to know one more thing about Paris Hilton. And there are a lot of others I don't want to know anything about too. Like Perez Hilton. I don't want to know anything more about him either. I think the last of the kind of raunchy celebrities that we're going to put up with is Chelsea Handler. I love Chelsea Handler, but I think we're going to get really tired of her in a minute, and she can go with Paris Hilton as well. This doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to use celebrities to move merchandise or to endorse product, but I think maybe we're going to want our celebrities to be more worthwhile. Maybe celebrities who actually do something instead of just going in and out of rehab like it has a revolving door. Maybe, you know, stars like Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig really have some substance. What I think is going to be interesting is that we are going to see an assortment of celebrities that are more targeted to the people that they expect to respond to the campaigns. And that means maybe we're going to see some old celebrities rolled back out again. Very, very effective. Not for you guys. I mean, you're not going to respond to something because Jane Fonda or Sean Connery buy it, like it, or eat it. But I will. Certainly. Jane Fonda is 70 years old, and I love her. And I will tell you why. Because in 2 years, I am going to be 70 years old, and I want my photographs retouched by whoever did hers. How about some real people instead of celebrities? Doesn't get any more real than these people. I think it's about time for fashion to start paying attention to the folks next door, the ones who really buy the merch, the ones who shop at Walmart. Guess what? I think they're kind of chic. Now, I didn't just make this up. I saw it in Saint-Tropez last summer, where some of the coolest people were already dressing like blue-collar factory workers in America. Very simple t-shirts, sweatshirts, gray heather jersey, jeans. That is not Brad Pitt in the middle, by the way. It is his body double, I think. I think ostentation is going to be over. For the last few years, we have been kind of secretly thrilled by people who show off and have all the money in the world and just spend it like drunken sailors, and it just seems, oh, isn't that cool? Well, I think it no longer seems cool anymore. I think it seems pathetic and wrong. How much should you pay for a cell phone? Well, would you buy that Vertu phone up there on the left-hand corner? Do you know how much it's going to cost you? I hope you have a big allowance from your parents because it will set you back $36,000. Seems a bit much for a cell phone to me. What this means in terms of fashion is that there are going to be some changes. Like our love for garish glitz, which has gone on since the 80s, is about to end. Maybe we're not going to see sequins on everything anymore. It's gone. What's going to replace it? Well, watch out for sparkle to shift to something more subtle, like tailored gold jewelry or streamlined silver or classic pearls. Michelle Obama's already wearing them. What about the It handbag? Well, I don't think the price in handbags is going to come down, don't get excited. But I think they're going to no longer be over-designed, no longer loaded with bells and whistles and all kinds of gimmicks and details and 4,000 zippers and pockets and charms. I think they're going to be exquisite, expensive skins. I think they're going to be simple shapes that you won't get tired of. Classics, like these. I think conspicuous consumption is no longer cool, and so that means flash and bling are going to start losing their glamour. I think it's already happening. It's going. It's not quite gone yet, but you have to realize that in my business I'm looking 24 or 28 months ahead of time, and I think by then we are going to be very, very tired of this stuff. And you'll be sorry you bought that watch. And you know how much it will have cost you? Guess. $800,000. What depression, okay? Okay, I think show-off shopping now seems stupid. Magazines very, very seldom put prices in, have you noticed? That's one thing I like about Harper's Bazaar. They have the balls to put the prices in. And so I picked out these 3 pictures that I think are symptomatic of the madness that's going on out there. Now, I would have read the prices of these clothes 6 months ago and just thought, oh, wow, isn't that incredible? Now I just think, that is sick. Okay, how about that little pink dress on the left by Versace? 2 yards of fabric, maybe? How much could the fabric possibly cost, Well, the dress cost $20,720. We're going to trade up, believe it or not. That next little outfit, and I have no idea where you're supposed to wear it, by the way, is from Dior. It's $21,225. I'm not stopping. This is like The Price is Right. Come on down. How much would you pay for that little prom dress, folks? Well, $23,090. And guess what? I can do one better. This outfit from Dolce & Gabbana, what do you think? Well, it's 2 separate pieces, so it's got to cost twice as much, doesn't it? $45,055. And Harper's Bazaar had the nerve to put that number in the caption. Okay, what about women who still have a lot of money and still want to buy a lot of clothes, but they don't want to show off? I think they're going to be like shameful shoppers. They're going to do secret shopping at places like on the internet where nobody can see what they're spending. We're not going to see them staggering around Soho with 12 designer shopping bags every Saturday. Companies like Carlyle and Per Se, their division of at-home party shopping for rich ladies, is something that I'm looking at as a big growth potential. However, remember, a better deal isn't necessarily a markdown. I think what's going to happen now is that we're going to see more and more attention paid to quality, to workmanship, to design integrity that we're not going to get tired of so quickly. So watch for a change in the way people shop and the way you think about what you buy for yourself. I mean, it's still going to be fun to buy, a couple cheap and cheerful fast fashion things at H&M or something, but the core of your wardrobe is going to be better quality, a better deal. What about the luxury market? I spend a lot of time talking and being interviewed about the luxury market because for the past decade or so, the luxury market has been driving fashion forward, and it's crashing and burning. It's not really in serious trouble because it's just contracting back to what it always was. There was an artificial inflation in the luxury goods market, just like the inflation you've read about in the housing market. Aspirational customers who probably should have never gone into Louis Vuitton in their lifetimes went in there with their plastic and charged and charged and charged. And so the luxury market seemed to be growing. However, now those aspirational customers are going back to their traditional shopping venues, and so the luxury market is suffering. But even there are some changes and some signs. Like right now, there's a big interest in cabochon stones. Do you know what cabochon stones are? They're smooth, polished stones instead of stones that are cut into facets to sparkle and twinkle. So even there's a subtle shift towards something that's more low profile, more toned down and classy. Okay, well, what do you do if you're really addicted to this whole luxury thing? Well, no problem. There are websites for you. You can be a luxury person living in a virtual world that won't cost you a penny. First of all, you don't need plastic surgery, you don't need Botox, you don't need to join a gym. You just create yourself as an avatar and you are fabulous looking right away. No problem. You can build yourself a McMansion as big as you like. You can have trendy decorators come in every other day and change the look of it. You can meet other cool avatars. As long as you never have to meet these people in real life, it's no problem. And best of all, you can shop and shop and shop until you drop. So if you have developed a champagne appetite, but you really have a beer budget, you can still go on vicariously living the good life that we're all learning to do without. Another thing I think we're going to get over is a disease, a terrible disease, that I call designer itis. It's also known as stupidity. And what it means is that we read things in fashion magazines written by fashion editors about designers and we believe it. We think because it's in a fashion magazine or on a runway, it actually happened. It didn't. It didn't. Tom Brown. Okay, I don't want to badmouth him, but I have never seen a real person walking around in a Tom Brown suit, have you? Oh, no, I'm lying. Tom Brown and I were both speakers at a convention last year, and he was dressed like that. And so was everybody who works for him who came to the speech. I haven't seen anybody else. But every time you read an article about Tom Brown, you will read that he revolutionized the way businessmen dress. And businessmen everywhere are wearing skinny suits and above-ankle pants. No, they are not. Okay, but it's fun to read about designers and what they're wearing or what they're not wearing, and which old idea they're ripping off and recycling. Okay, so that's fun. Just realize it's just entertainment because Coco Chanel was so right. She was so right about so much, but her most famous quote is, "It isn't fashion until somebody on the street is wearing it." And nobody on the street is walking around naked with a recycled Stevens Sprouse handbag. Well, the weather's too cold. This is the most important book that I've read recently, and part of what I do when I do my presentations is always recommended reading lists for people in the business. This book is by John Zogby. His name may ring a slight bell because he is the political pollster who takes all those polls during the election. So you may have heard his name, you may have seen him on TV, and he just wrote this book called The Way Will Be. And what he did was to take all of this information that he gathered during the campaigns and he repositioned it to figure out what the consumer is going to be like after recovery. And it's his feeling, and I think he has the numbers to prove it, we're not going to be the same. We're not going to be the way we were before the economic meltdown. We're going to be a whole different kind of population, and because fashion is always a reflection of the society that wears it, if the population is going to be different, you can bet your bottom dollar that fashion itself is going to be very different, and that's what we have to figure out. The change is already starting. Women's Wear Daily just published this list that I thought was really meaningful. They called it the simpler life. And they charted 5 things that are diminishing, like going to expensive restaurants, 5 things that are growing, like staying home and watching a DVD. Even the new trendy restaurants are suddenly more realistic and gritty. They're not so grand. They're not so elegant. They're kind of real. Even the food on the menus is getting more and more real. Menswear has always been kind of real. That's one thing that women's wear people don't like about it. It's not exciting enough. It's not dramatic enough. It doesn't change every 10 minutes. Well, that's its saving grace. And the entire fashion industry is in big trouble. The menswear industry is only in a little bit of trouble. So they're doing something right. Because men traditionally refresh and replenish their wardrobes. They don't revolutionize them every season. A man's motto is kind of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. For a man, if the lapel on his jacket is 1/4 of an inch bigger or smaller, that's like a revolution. And I think maybe, when we recover, one of the ways will be is to start applying that kind of thinking to women's wear. So I think we're going to see things like this, refreshed versions of very, very familiar favorites, tweaked. So they're fresh and exciting, but they're not totally reinvented. No out-of-the-box design thinking. I don't know what this means for Project Runway, but we'll see. Okay, another thing that I think is overdue for a change, and I've been harping about this, and I'm trying to organize committees and stuff. So far, nothing's happened, but I'm not giving up. I think the fashion industry has to change its delivery cycle and timing because it is no longer relevant to the way we all shop. The fashion industry keeps talking about buy now, wear now. And that's how we do it, isn't it? We buy something and we wear it tonight or we wear it tomorrow. Lucky us. By the time we buy it to wear now, it's marked down because it was delivered 6 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago. And it's been hanging around in the store because nobody wanted it. It was too early. So, take a look at that Chloe outfit on the left. Terrific little shorts outfit. I really like it a lot. It's delivered in the stores between October and January. Is that when you want to buy shorts? I don't think so. Or how about during the heat waves of July and August when the coats and the bulky sweaters come into the stores? And finally, if you wonder what you're going to wear home for Thanksgiving dinner at your mother's house, that's when the bathing suits hit the store. It's a small change. We're talking about 6 or 8 weeks, and no retailer or designer or manufacturer will dare to change this calendar. I don't know why. They could sell things at full price. What they're doing is so simple. We're seeing more and more seasonless dressing. So even though the store and the designer may know it's their pre-spring collection, you don't know that. You don't know what it's called. You just know you want to buy it now and wear it now. Okay, let's jump ahead and look at how we're going to be for spring 2010. It's the light at the end of the runway as well as the light at the end of the tunnel because fashion is going to be enlightened. For one thing, I think we're going to be bummed out of black. I think 2009 is going to be the final grand finale of depressing black. And it's about time because it has been the fashion color since 1980. So fashion is supposed to move, right? Okay, don't you think, 29, 30 years is long enough for a fashion color? I do. Black is depressing. Black is sad. We are going to be so depressed and sad for a whole year that by the time we get to 2010, I think we're going to be ready to be cheered up. Some designers are already there. Feel-good, bright color. Even if you still don't have any money, you're going to feel happier about it wearing bright color. Or any color. It doesn't have to be bright. Soft color, pastel color, dusty color, softer shades of all kinds. And so much of this is going to depend on not the color itself, but how you wear the color. I'm already seeing something I like going on a lot, just a little bit here and there, but to me that seems a lot. Two-tone color combinations in both menswear and women's wear for dressy and casual clothes. I think it's psychologically sound because it represents a sociological movement that is saying we're pulling ourselves together. Life is making more sense. We're figuring out the puzzle. And so these little psychological movements in fashion are signs that we're changing our mindset about how we think and act. This is something we've got to finish with. I don't care how addicted you are to stupid high fashion. You have to kick the habit. I'm sure there must be a 12-step program somewhere, okay? You can sign up for it. But too far out is so out of touch. It is designer masturbation. I'm sorry, that's what it is. It means absolutely nothing. And yet, Women's Wear Daily writes about it, W writes about it, the New York Times writes about it. These are clothes by famous designers, Junya Watanabe, Alexander McQueen, Martin Margiela, Comme des Garçons. Nobody in their right mind is going to ever wear this. Chanel was right. It's not going to be on the street. Unless the street is Christopher Street and it's Halloween. It's the only street that's ever going to see these fashions. Okay? So then we have to start addressing that thing known as trends. Every season, the fashion press gets all excited about the trends. Well, I'm sorry, they're telling fibs. The things they say are trends are not trends. They are little fashion flashpoints, little news items that kind of jazz up something, but they're not a real trend. Fringe, a lot of hoopla about fringe. How much fringe do you think is going to sell? Do you think anybody's actually going to wear a fringed overcoat? I don't think so. Fun, yes, but not a trend. How about boudoir dressing? Oh, there was a lot of buzz in the press about that for spring. I don't think so. I'm also convinced this is not going to happen. Compilation dressing. Stylists love doing this because only stylists are allowed to do it. Everybody else would be laughed at. Don't you think? It looks like you got dressed in the dark in the morning. Nothing goes with anything. And that is very, very much the opposite of what we're hungry for now when we need life to make some better sense. How about bondage? Designers just refuse to move away from this trend, and I think it says more about designers and their mothers and their therapists than it does about fashion, you know? I mean, how many women in their right mind want to show their face in a bondage dress in public? I don't think so. Well, don't worry, Martin Margiela has done an outfit for the woman who wants to wear bondage but doesn't want to show her face. That's it. Let's talk about a real trend, shall we? Safari/military, call it whatever you like. There are certain trends that are real. The problem, as far as the press is concerned, is that they're not new. They just sell all the time. We give them a cute different name every season to try to trick ourselves, you know, but the customer isn't tricked. She knows, oh, I like safari. I always like safari. Give me a new safari look, new military look. There's also always a romantic look. There's always a modern futuristic look. There's always a sporty look. Just change the name every season, but do a new version of the successful trends. Here's one that's fairly new. It's been around a little while, but it's not going away. Call it what you like. The green trend, the ecological trend. I think it's meaningful. I think it's part of what people are thinking about and concerned about. One thing that's happening to our society is that we are all getting over being irresponsible and crazy. We want to take care of each other and take care of the planet. You're probably like me. You probably learn something new about ecology every day. I'm surprised at how ignorant I have been. That ad in the middle, there's no way I could not read that. It was such a compelling graphic. And the message is something I didn't know. Did you know that the burning of the rainforest in South America produce more carbon dioxide in our atmosphere every single day than all the cars driven on the streets of the world do put together? Isn't that an astonishing factoid? So we're all interested. Certainly, we're interested in living in a more ecologically responsible environment. That picture on the left is so fascinating. I was reading about vertical farming. You don't need earth because we're running out of farmland. It's too expensive right now, but actually on the drawing board is a 30-story high farm skyscraper that could be built in New York City, and if it was ever built, it would provide enough food for the entire population of New York City. One building. It's amazing, isn't it? And because we're fascinated by this entire concept, we keep applying that to design and to fashion of all kinds. So nature becomes a fashion inspiration, all kinds of natural motifs. And there's nothing new about that. You know, some of the jewelry I'm showing you there is lalique from the turn of the century. We have always, loved nature. And certainly that expresses itself in our continuing love of prints, of natural prints. And there's a tiny little change going on. Have you noticed that all the newest flower prints have lots of greenery amongst the flowers now? Lots of leaves and stems and vines. It's part of that literal green movement. Green, 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 green. If we say it often enough, of course, we're going to fall in love with the color green, which is being projected as one of the important colors for spring 2010. What shade of green? Doesn't matter. We can't dictate a single shade anymore, so just about every shade of green you can imagine is there. Michelle Obama already loves green, doesn't she? That's what she wore for the inauguration and several other events too. Green is a hard sell. Green doesn't look good on everybody, so you have to be particular about the shade of green. And green has been in and out of fashion for a long time. Green first became very, very important during Victorian times because that's when the French discovered how to dye green. And it became a hot color. It was called Paris green, and everybody wanted it until they found out that in order to make the dye, they had to use arsenic. And so then everybody got scared, and they started calling it poison green. And we still call certain shades of green poison green. Now, green has been in and out of fashion a lot, and part of what I do all the time is study fashion history, and I hope you do too. I mean, you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful museum right here across the street, so I hope you hang out there a lot and benefit from the wonderful exhibitions that are there. One time that green was very, very important was in 1939. It was a very big year for green. Think about it. It was the year The Wizard of Oz was made. And where was Dorothy obsessed with going? To the Emerald City, of course, where everybody was wearing green. Green was evidently so big in the Emerald City that I guess it was also a makeup trend. 1939 also had another movie that was all about green, believe it or not, Gone with the Wind. I hope you've all seen Gone with the Wind. If you haven't, you should. Great movie. Vivian Leigh played Scarlett O'Hara, and the book had been such a roaring success that the movie had to be absolutely true to the book, and there was one big problem. The book made a big fuss about Scarlett O'Hara's green eyes, and Vivian Leigh had blue eyes. So they solved that problem by putting a little yellow spotlight right under the camera lens that would shine in her eyes all the time and make her eyes look green. I know you don't care about this stuff, but I love it, so too bad. And in fact, Scarlett O'Hara's costumes were mostly green. Just insane. Every time in the book she had an outfit, it was green. Walter Plunkett, who was the designer, got very concerned, and he called up the author, Margaret Mitchell, and said, what's the significance? Why is Scarlett's every outfit green? And Margaret Mitchell said, oh, is it? I didn't know. I just like green. So there was no sense to that. The most famous green dress in the movies is in Gone with the Wind. It's the dress that Scarlett makes out of the green velvet curtains, helped by her mammy. And like every great dress, it was knocked off. You may have seen a clip of the knockoff because Carol Burnett wore it when Bob Mackie made a wonderful, wonderful joke of it. Carol Burnett came staggering down the stairs of her plantation, and when Rhett Butler said he liked the dress, she said, oh, it was just something I saw in the window. That green doesn't have to be the color green, of course. There's a whole spectrum of natural color that is like an homage to nature. We're loving everything natural. Wood is a hot material right now. Anything that is the color of wood, anything that is wood itself. It's kind of hard to make clothes out of wood, but how about a wood print? Alexander McQueen managed to pull that off. But in terms of natural textures, right now we're having an incredible snake moment. There is nothing new about snake. It's almost always there, but suddenly this season, Prada and John Galliano and Christian Dior and Gucci are all having this Python moment. But by the time we get to spring 2010, it will have been ripped off by everybody, so we need a new natural material. I'm betting that maybe it's going to be ostrich. Do you know what ostrich looks like? It's like leather with little dots on it. So that could be. It doesn't have to be as expensive as skin, just anything that's a natural fiber, a natural color, a natural texture will resonate with us. And so much about the way we want to present ourselves has to do with a feeling we have, the way we're stroking ourselves psychologically to feel better about the world. One thing that we want is some simplicity because the world has become so complicated. We didn't know what the bankers were doing, did we? So that feeling about, oh God, I wish everything was simpler, will start to manifest itself in a new design aesthetic where we're looking for more and more simplicity in terms of design, architecture, tabletop, apparel, accessories. Simple is going to be more and more exciting to us. It's already starting. Little symptoms are out there. Simple, clean graphics suddenly look very, very right. Bold stripes or color blocking or abstractions. It doesn't have to be boring. Simple doesn't mean boring. Right now, we're removing all the decoration and superfluous detail that's been driving fashion, and we're becoming more and more obsessed with interesting shapes and forms and silhouettes. And certainly, here are some extreme examples from the women's wear collections where shape is really the message. Is that kind of extreme shape going to sell? Of course not. We have to tone it down. And if we want to see it already toned down, all we have to do is look at what's happening to shoes and handbags, or better yet, look at menswear. Here, soft, big, simple, non-challenging shapes. Even though this is only happening in menswear, I think it's going to make lots of sense when women's wear designers start taking the same approach. Sometimes we're soothed mentally by recycling and looking at something very, very familiar. I loved this spread in a recent men's magazine where they went through all the recent presidents one by one and picked out apparel items or accessory items like President Eisenhower's cardigan, that kind of thing. I like these pictures a lot, and I think they were real important. What could be more classic than a guy in a suit? Well, these guys aren't usually in suits in this publication. It's from a kind of out there gay magazine that usually has fashion pages presenting guys as sort of porn stars or rocker wannabes. So when they do a layout of suits, even three-piece with a vest and only a little bright sock to kind of liven things up, it's a sign that times are changing. The big story from the European menswear designer collections, which just finished showing in Milan and Paris, believe it or not, is the return of the double-breasted suit. If that's the big news, you know conservative style is now the cutting edge. It's simple. Again, you just take a classic like gingham or a white shirt and you update it, but not very much. You want to keep it on familiar turf because that's where the reassurance and that's where the sale comes from. I think we're going to see in women's wear a return to the working wardrobe, and I think that's very important. It was very important when women really first started to move up the executive ladder in the 70s, and dressing for success was a mantra that moved a lot of merchandise. Well, women made giant steps, and everybody started dressing for work like they were going to a nightclub or to the beach. And that was okay when times were good. But times are not so good now, and so people are wanting to present themselves in a much more professional kind of way, which is why in the menswear arena we have seen the big return of what is known as the interview suit. What do you need an interview suit for? Well, these aren't new. I mean, if you watch the TV show Mad Men on AMC, and I hope you do, these are exactly the suits that Madison Avenue businessmen wore in 1960, 1962. Narrow lapels, narrow ties, slimline, they're terrific. Of course, not every man wants to work, and if he doesn't, there are suits for him too. These suits actually were presented with a straight face by designers in Europe. I have no idea what they were thinking of. And in case a man really wants to get fired by lunchtime, there was a suit for him too. Rafe Simons did this one. Some ideas are so old that they seem excitingly new. Matchy-matchy. That hasn't been in fashion for so long that even I hardly remember it. But I think it's back, about to come back. It looks very, very exciting. Handbags and shoes that match, a print dress that matches a print handbag, or a print blouse that matches the lining of a jacket. Ask your granny how that worked, okay? She'll remember. Women used to go shopping with little swatches of color to try to match up things. Well, again, it's that movement back toward trying to restore order in a world that seems to be too chaotic and falling apart. What about the future? Well, we're practically living in the future. 2010 sounds like science fiction to somebody as old as I am. Of course, you all know that the Mayan calendar says the world's going to end in 2012, but don't worry about that. We are always going forward to the future. It's what the human species does so well. So we have wonderful futuristic architecture happening right now. We have wonderful futuristic gadgets like the electronic interactive cookbook. I mean, who knew that was going to happen even 18 months ago? So who knows what's going to happen in fashion 18 months from now? Designers are always trying to push the envelope, but sometimes they seem to be licking it instead of pushing it. They're a bit too anxious, getting us too far to the future. But there is one thing that's already here that is futuristic. All kinds of techno-textiles. We are now seeing clothes made of blends and made of materials. You can't even call them textiles or fabrics. Substances that didn't exist a few years ago, and they really will be the fashion of the future. And the most exciting thing about the future is here already. It's the accessories of the future, and I don't mean a new IT handbag or a new pair of monoblonic shoes. We think they're electronic gadgets. They're not. They are the accessories of the future. Certainly you've seen this big campaign that's all over the city for personal media viewers. I think it's that kind of newness, that kind of creativity, that kind of innovation that is going to save fashion as we go toward the light at the end of the tunnel. And it will not be the end, but it will be a new beginning. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you this afternoon. It's been a great pleasure. Do we have some time for a few questions? Okay, just before you ask, let me answer one that I know you will ask. Yes, the Doneger Group has an intern program. And it's fairly popular and usually very, very competitive. If you want to find out more about it, please send an email to Marianne Moore, M-O-O-R-E. Her email address is mmoore@doneger.com, D-O-N-E-G-E-R, and just tell her that you heard me speak at FIT and you want information about the intern program. And if you all send her an email, she will kill me. The other question I'm usually asked is, how can you get my job? Well, I'm very healthy, but I won't live forever, and that's the only way you can get my job. Quite seriously, fashion forecasting is a very, very small field, to be honest with you. There are maybe 6 people in the world who do exactly what I do, but there are many people who do a variation of it. Lots of companies, retailers have their own in-house trend departments, and those people are kind of officially trend forecasters. I happen to think that I'm very privileged in having the most interesting job in the industry, because Mr. Doneger, who owns the Doneger Group, told me I can talk about anything I want to, ever. So I have no bottom line responsibilities, which is just great because I can wander the world and kind of suss out what's going on. I started my career, as you heard, at a little department store in Ohio. That is not how I recommend you start a trajectory toward being a fashion forecaster. I didn't know that's what I was going to be because there was no such job when I started out. And that's one thing that's so wonderful about the fashion industry, because it keeps reinventing itself all the time. So maybe what you will end up doing for a career doesn't even exist now, and maybe you will invent that job. I was very, very fortunate. I always seem to be in the right place at the right time, not because I'm so smart, but because I'm so lucky. And I was living in Europe at the time, working as a fashion illustrator, late in the 60s, early in the 70s. And it was at that very moment that fashion really reinvented itself in a big way. Up to that time, American retailers and manufacturers and designers always just looked at Paris haute couture. And whatever was shown in the haute couture, they just knocked off. And everybody was happy with that system. And it really was a system. You know, there was a saying that, you know, in Paris now, 18 months from now in Peoria. And that really worked that way. But suddenly then, late in the 60s, early in the 70s, everything changed, and fashion started coming from the streets, from the little boutiques, the little restaurants, the little clubs in London and Paris. And there were a group of us, American expatriates living and working in London with some, and Paris, with some connections in America, and American designers and manufacturers started asking us for information. They wanted to know, what's going on? What are the kids wearing? Because this is suddenly where fashion was coming from. So we started sending out reports and information, and because the rag trade is so competitive, it really is a jungle. It did not take long for all of these people who were receiving this information to say, okay, you're telling us what's happening now, tell me what's happening next. Well, that was a tricky move. And that's where forecasting was really born. And I was so lucky. I had two big advantages. The first one was that I was a fashion illustrator. And I could draw things that didn't exist yet. So I could communicate ideas that weren't real yet. The other thing, was just so lucky. And I swear this is true, my grandmother was a Romany gypsy fortune teller. And I think something in my DNA, allows me to see the future. I can't see the future of the stock market, unfortunately. I can only see the hemlines. Okay, now it's your turn. Question, yes. I think it will survive because I think people will have a passion and I think people are going to be buying less anyway and looking for more quality. And I think our perception is that things that are manufactured responsibly are probably better quality. That's not always the case. But I think it's like a woman buying a $1,000 handbag. What a stupid idea! But if we want it badly enough, we will spend our money in that way. And I genuinely believe that the green movement, which started, I guess, about 15 years ago, with crazy people in California, and it never went anywhere else, is now gaining momentum. But you're absolutely right; everything is more expensive. But I think people are experimenting and finding ways to bring that down, because always, they will go where there is consumer receptivity. Anybody else?
No more questions?
Oh, yes, okay.
When you look at some of the big department stores like Doneger and Zach, they mostly carry the same products from the same designers. Do you see any up-and-coming stores? Are those stores going to change, or are other department stores a boutique?
Okay, that's an excellent question. And for many decades, people have been, predicting the demise of the department store, and they haven't died, but they're really no longer department stores. That's a misnomer. They were invented so that we could have everything under one roof. And department stores used to, sell furniture and appliances and all kinds of stuff. And now most of them are simply glorified specialty stores that really just sell fashion and accessories and a bit of home furnishings. So I think one of the problems they are all facing is the sameness of the retail landscape, and that's one reason we've had so many mergers and amalgamations, because they truly are the same. I think the future really is going to be owned by the vertical operations, stores that produce their own product and limit it to themselves. And that's very, very challenging in terms of today's economic situation. I think we're going to see some real shakeouts in the retail community. And I think 5 years from now, it's going to be a very, very different kind of operation. One thing that people simply aren't factoring in is the fact that we have a consumer population that's very, very confident and democratic and not to be dictated to. And like when I look out at you, you all look kind of similar, but everybody's different, and I think that's just great. And if this had been 20 years ago, I would have looked out and you all would have been wearing a variation of the same outfit. So I think that sameness is something that's going to have to go by the wayside, or retailers are going to perish. Yes.
The rise of the vertical means the demise of the small independent manufacturer. It's already happened.
Yes.
And I see that continuing. But to me, that's where a lot of the creativity came from. And if everything is going to be vertical, I'm not so sure we can really get away from the sameness.
I think the new system is going to be altogether different. I think we're going to have little creative people who get knocked off by the vertical people in the way that the couture used to, feed the rest of the industry. So, but I think the dilemma is that every young person I talk to in America who is creative and who wants to be in the fashion industry wants to become Ralph Lauren and wants an empire. And I think we have to somehow encourage creativity for its own sake and have people who will be happy having a little wonderfully creative business and feed, be the leader, the creative leaders for the people who really are the empire builders. It's not fair, but I think it's the way it will be. Yes? Yeah.
I'm not. Well, you said that bright colors will be in for 2010. How about bridal wear? Since we can't really go for wild colors.
Right, you can't. Right. But I think one thing that's going to happen, I'm very interested in bridal wear at the moment for the first time in a long time, because I think part of our move toward a more conservative, orderly society means that we're going to have the kind of interest in weddings that we had during the 1950s, when it was a kind of a very uptight kind of society. And there was a lot of creativity. There were like pink weddings and blue weddings and rainbow weddings, but certainly not a lot of bright color. And I'm hoping that we're just going to see the end of the monotonous, strapless, full-skirted white wedding dress that everybody wears. I would like to see some variety there. Anybody else? Yes. Yes. Okay. Well, good question. I think stores like H&M, Zara, and Topshop will continue to thrive because, for one thing, they're cheap and cheerful and they appeal to young people who are hungry for change and innovation. What I think is not going to happen, that everybody thought was going to happen, is that the rest of the fashion industry is not going to work from their template. Like, a year ago, everybody that I worked with said, well, how can I be more like H&M? And now I think they're realizing that H&M should be like H&M, but they shouldn't be. But I think the idea of knockoffs or ripping off or inspiration or whatever you want to call it is how the fashion system works. You can't be a leader if you don't want anybody to follow you. And I always get kind of upset because I think it's easy to tell the difference between a Chanel jacket from Chanel and a Chanel jacket from H&M. If you can't tell the difference, buy H&M. Yes. Oh, I think it's happening as we speak. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think we're even starting to hear glimmers of a return toward domestic manufacturing for some items and some lines, just so they can shorten that period. It's tricky though because it still costs more than goods from a fourth world country. Yes. Not so much China anymore because China has become more expensive. But there are places, hard to find on a map that do manufacture competitively. Bob can tell you. Yes.
I really like your idea of the wear it now, stores now kind of. We should really be buying it in January and stuff. Do you really see a realistic, that goal being achieved?
No.
In the next year?
No, maybe never, but I think we have to keep trying. And I think, it just makes so much sense because it would be different if business was really good for manufacturers and retailers. But, as soon as they mark something down, they're shrinking their profit margin. So if they would, bring it in, on the day you really want to buy a bathing suit and you need it, you might pay full price. You know, I mean, we have all been so spoiled now. You know, does anybody buy anything at full price? I certainly don't. You know. Okay. Yes. Okay, you're probably not going to like this answer. I think the most important thing is know how to write and communicate. Write and speak, because it's really about communicating your ideas. And you can, and the other skills, I mean, hopefully you have creative talent, and that, you know, you sharpen up as time goes on. But you know, just the ability to actually be a people person is so important, because nobody works in an ivory tower anymore. You know, even despite the fact that, you know, you spend all your time on, you know, on your computer, you know, talking to the person in the cubicle next to you. But you know, you really have to know how to communicate. So English is, you know, like, and you know, hopefully a foreign language or two. You know, it's kind of serious and not frivolous and fun, but obviously, you know, you need that basic skill set, and then, you know, hopefully you get a great internship with somebody who's really creative and allows you to participate or at least observe the creative process, which, you know, is endlessly thrilling. Yes, somebody up there? Yes? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we're going to see a winnowing out of a lot of people who have, you know, been allowed to think of themselves as designers, and you know, and they really are not. They are glorified stylists, and we simply, you know, the press needed designers, and we all had so much money that we could buy crap and pretend it was designer stuff. But I think that's going to end. It's going to be hard times. Yes, sir. I think they serve a wonderful purpose, but I think, you know, they don't really dress the world. So I mean, in my opinion, I think 10 years from now, maybe 20, we're going to have a very different profile for the fashion industry. I think, you know, maybe 85% of it is going to be about clothing that real people buy, and 15% or even less is going to be a very, very different world. And I think of fashion with a capital F. I think it's going to be kind of like the music business. You know, there's popular music, and then there's opera, and the two don't cross-pollinate. And so that's what I think, you know, Martin Margiela and Jean-Paul Gaultier and John Galliano, you know, Vivienne Westwood is my favorite designer in the world. You know, I don't think anybody in their right mind wears Vivienne Westwood, but she serves a great purpose, and she's inspirational, and, you know, she is a great idea factory. So I think one of the problems that we're having at the moment is, or we've had and we're getting over it, is that lots of people are trying to commercialize art that can't be commercialized because it really is art. Yes? Yes. Exactly. Yes, one of the strange things, I mean, there used to be, you know, you're too young to remember, a real difference between maternity clothes and what was in fashion, and that's changing now. And you know, there's a problem in that most women, until they're very pregnant, you know, can wear, you know, clothes that they buy in a regular department. But certainly, you know, the beauty of being interested in the maternity market is that you can track the demographics and know whether it's going to grow or not, depending on, you know, what the population is doing. People always have children, of course. Okay, well, thank you. Oh, one more question, okay? Okay, two more questions. Okay, I think it's possible to commercialize art if you take it far enough that it really becomes something commercial. But the idea that, you know, you can retain the artistic integrity of something John Galliano did, and make it, for Walmart, just is impossible. Book-wise, this one, The Way Will Be is very, very important. There's a wonderful new book about a designer you probably don't know. You can get the book on Amazon.com. Bill Gibb, who was one of the great English designers of the 70s, and he's virtually unknown in this country. And that book just came out. There's a wonderful new coffee table book about the French couturier Lucien Lelong, and it's a fascinating story. There are more books about fashion and fashion history and business. If you read those two categories all the time, you'll be a smart person and make lots of money. Okay, thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Just to announce, next week we have Audrey Smoltz and the ground crew. And you're all welcome to come and hear her too.
And Audrey is fabulous, so be sure you come next week.
Thank you. I wanted to say that. And those students who are CL 112, I have this giveaway for you to keep for your final exam, okay?
Hello.
My mom just started teaching here as market research, and she wanted to know if you have any freelance positions available. I have her resume.
I don't think so, but I wouldn't know because I really work as a separate entity. So she calls Marianne Moore.
She does
Marianne.
Marianne
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
So I have her email address.
Yes. Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Oh, thanks, Bob. Okay, good to see you. Okay, thank you very
Excellent.
much.
I used to come to hear you when I was a small manufacturer over at Doneger for the presentation.
Yes.
But actually, that'd be helping me get in here.